Okay, this presentation is for Chapter 6 from the Bell, Foster, and Cone book, Dissertations and Theses from Start to Finish. This is Reviewing the Literature, or doing your literature review. The first step in conducting your literature review is to find relevant sources of literature. Appropriate sources include journal articles, books, book chapters, conference papers, theses, and dissertations, just to name a few. Bell, Foster, and Cone make 3 major suggestions for starting the literature review to help you find appropriate sources. First, be sure to use primary sources. Don't just rely on descriptions of studies and their findings in other authors' work, which would be secondary sources. It's possible that authors may have described the original sources incorrectly, like if they said the study made a conclusion that the original authors actually didn't make. So it's important for you to read the original work and draw your own conclusions from it. Second, be sure to avoid the popular press, so don't use articles from Time Magazine or the New York Times or Psychology Today. Work from these sources might be good ways of learning about your general topic, but they're not equivalent to peer-reviewed journals and other scholarly works. Finally, develop a search strategy. Identify keywords and phrases relevant to your topic to use for computerized or electronic searches. Start with keywords listed in the relevant papers you've already found. Many journals include keywords or descriptors beneath the abstract. If they don't, usually the abstracts themselves contain the keywords and phrases. One especially useful feature of many electronic databases is the thesaurus of terms. For example, PsycInfo's Thesaurus of Psychological Index Terms. Using that feature allows you to look at terms related to the keywords you select, and they may give you ideas about other search terms to include. The next step is to conduct your search. First, identify key authors and journals for your research. Who are the key players in your research area? What publications or journals are most of their works published in? Check with your chair or committee members to find out if you aren't easily able to figure this out on your own. Consider using the bibliographic references section of a recent book or article on your topic as a starting place to locate additional relevant articles and the key players for research on your topic. Citation indices are also a good reference source. They allow you to look up every article that has cited a particular article since its publication, which is useful if you want to ascertain what's been done in the area of your research since the article was published. Also, the Social Science Citation Index, or SSCI, indexes every article from more than 1,500 professional journals. Google your key players. Use scholar.google.com to return scholarly article results only. PubMed, the free online search engine operated by the National Institutes of Health and the National Library of Medicine, is also a good place to look. PsycInfo, PsycNet, and other resources are limited by the journals they include. Keep in mind that disciplines like medicine, communications, education, social work, sociology, and business all have journals that publish articles relevant to some areas of psychology, so you may want to check research in other disciplines besides psychology too, depending on your topic. Another good way to search for relevant literature is to scan the tables of contents of key journals. The next step in the literature review process is to collect and organize the information that you found. You want to be sure to keep track of citations. So each time you cite a source, be sure to go ahead and record the accurate APA 7 bibliographic citation. Consider using some sort of document storage system, such as Zotero, which will generate the citations for you and allow you to organize all of your sources by topic, subtopic, etc. EndNote is another reference manager software program mentioned by the authors that allows you to organize citations and format them in many different styles, including APA 7. Like Zotero, EndNote allows you to work collaboratively with your research partners to share the info you're collecting and organizing. Be sure to allow in advance for how much storage space you'll need for all of your sources and documentation, including your own notes on the sources you're collecting. The next step is to critically read and evaluate what you found. As you collect your literature, read it critically. Remember, you're going to synthesize this information into a coherent review that highlights the main themes, strengths, and weaknesses of your work. You need to look at both the forest, or the big picture, and the trees, or the details. The textbook provides 2 really great tools you can use to critically evaluate your sources and keep track of the information you're getting from them. One is the Guidelines for Evaluating Empirical Studies questionnaire on pages 107 to 113, and the other is the coding sheet for recording info from research articles. I'm going to show you this on the next slide. You can see here on the left is a portion of the guidelines for evaluating empirical studies. So this is just kind of a structured questionnaire to make sure that you're asking questions that will get you to think critically about the information you're consuming from each source that you get. And over on the right is a coding sheet for recording information from research articles. This one is specifically tailored to a study on behavioral parent training, but you could revise this sort of structured coding sheet any way you wanted to fit your topic. So it's just getting you to kind of look at the specific details of a research article that you can record and kind of organize them in this way. After collecting, organizing, and analyzing sources of information on your topic, it's time to actually prepare to write your literature review. Before you start, keep two things in mind. First, you're not writing for yourself. You're writing for an audience of scholars. You know what you know, but your committee members can't see directly into your brain. They may not know the literature as well as you do. So your job in writing the lit review is to educate your committee about the topic. Second, you're not writing a detective story. Don't think about your own path of discovery that led you to your proposed study. Think about your study as the end point of the review, the broad research question, or the need that drives your study as the starting point, and the literature review as a theoretical and empirical path that takes readers on a fairly direct route from beginning to end. Remember the funnel format. Before you start to write, you also need to be mindful of the length and format parameters. What are the page expectations or requirements? Write a basic tentative outline. Next to each major heading, indicate the approximate number of pages you plan to include for each. Limit the scope of your literature review to fit within the expected length requirements. It's also very important to organize and synthesize the material from everything you've read. The author suggests that some of the most common ways of organizing or grouping your literature into manageable, coherent subgroupings might be by covering studies that examine the same related independent variables together, or ones that examine related dependent variables together, or even ones that utilize the same type of design or ones that have similar theoretical premises. Finally, it's time to start writing. A lot of students get writer's block at this point and don't know where to start. Beware of assuming that your review has to be perfect, though, or that you have to cite every single relevant study or produce consistently brilliant insights before you dare to even hand in a draft of your review to your chair. Bell, Foster, and Kohn remarked that this is, quote, unrealistic self-talk, end quote. Virtually all students hand in and revise several drafts of their lit reviews before they're finished. This is totally normal. If you start to write the introduction and find it too hard, switch to writing another section you find easier and work from there. Build in small rewards for accomplishing goals. Your intro should be brief and pitch your topic, introduce key concepts and terms, and describe the scope and organization of your review. Then, write your subsections that describe and synthesize portions of the literature. These sections should be consistent with whatever organizational approach you used earlier, like if you grouped things by independent variables or the type of design. Finally, the last step in reviewing the literature is to synthesize and critically analyze the literature. One of the most frequent complaints the authors of this text hear from faculty colleagues is that students don't analyze or synthesize the literature they review. Synthesizing literature involves investigating the patterns you find, as well as considering potential explanations, including methodological, design, and population differences among studies, and assumptions that may be false about how the independent variables operate or relate to the dependent variables. By the end of your literature review, readers should have a good idea of the patterns of findings and methods that characterize your area of research. Also, critique which studies are best or worst, and why. Be sure to use a professional tone when commenting on others' work, and remember that ad hominem criticisms, which are criticisms of the person rather than the work, are never acceptable. You will introduce your study and hypotheses in a subsection based on the expected format dictated by department guidelines for the thesis. You'll then write your additional required subsections. This should go without saying, but be very careful not to plagiarize. Be aware that closely paraphrasing someone else's words, or even quoting them, is plagiarism if you do not appropriately give credit to the source, to give credit where it is due. Finally, be prepared to revise and rewrite after rereading your own work and after getting feedback from your thesis chair. Be open to the feedback you receive, and remember that your thesis chair committee members are on your side. They're there to help you. Your readers may end up seeing ambiguities you missed, but look at receiving feedback as an opportunity to improve your writing.